Do you have uneven biceps? Are your biceps, is the left arm bigger than the right arm or the right arm bigger than the left arm? Why is this happening? And how do you fix uneven biceps? I'm going to talk all about it today. First and foremost, we have to talk about genetics because that's just the way it is. You have to talk about your genetics when it comes to uneven biceps. Genetically, everybody is built a little bit differently. No two people are the same. So just keep that in mind, right? And with that said, genetically, we all have different insertion points on our muscles. So some people's biceps insert lower down by the forearm, okay? And some people's biceps insert a little bit higher. So when they insert a little bit higher, you'll have like a peak of the bicep. When they insert lower, you'll have a bigger, fuller bicep. It's just your genetics. You can't change that insertion point. So some people will say that you can do certain exercises to fulfill those insertion points and develop the lower part of the bicep. You can develop certain areas a little bit better, but you ultimately can't change that insertion point. So if you have a space, if my bicep doesn't insert all the way down, right? Like mine's a little bit higher, right? That just means I'm going to have a higher peak and a less fuller bicep from end to end. So if we look at somebody like Larry Scott, who was the first Mr. Olympia, he had big, full biceps because his insertions were all the way down to the elbow. Whereas if you look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, he had a really, really high peak on one of his biceps because it inserted a little bit back. And I'll show you mine in a second, but everybody's biceps are shaped a little bit differently. So we'll look at my right arm first. So if we look at my right bicep, you can see that there's a gap here, right? And that's just where my insertion points are. Now, if I switch to the left side, you can see it's a little bit fuller and a little bit higher because it genetically it inserts at a little bit of a different spot. So this one's a little bit higher than this one. And that's just the way genetics are. You can't really change that. But you can balance your biceps out. And if you have one arm bigger than the other, I'm going to show you how to balance all this out and fix them. And we're going to do this with two ways. One, by picking correct exercises. So we'll go over that. And by two, we're going to be discussing the priority principle when it comes to balancing out uneven arms. So first, let's discuss exercise selection. So first things first, when it comes to developing even biceps across the board, we need to focus on switching all barbell movements to dumbbell movements. And the reason why we're going to switch from barbell to dumbbell is because when you're in a barbell, when you're using a barbell, whether it's an easy bar curl or a straight bar, you're locking your whole body into a fixed plane. So for example, you're grabbing the bar, I'm touching at certain points. I have my hands in the bar, my shoulders are elevated back, my wrists are bent, my wrists are straight, my elbows are opened up, right? But I'm in a fixed position. But if we switch to dumbbells, we're allowing for more freedom. It's very, very similar, and a good way to look at it is when you go from using a Smith machine bench press to a regular bench press. When you use a Smith machine bench press, you're locked in a fixed plane. But when we switch and we use a free weight bench press, we have the ability to move any direction that we need to be comfortable for our body. Same thing with your biceps. If your biceps are uneven and you're applying force to a barbell, if one arm is a little bit stronger than the other, you're going to get a little more out of the other side, and the other side is just kind of along for the ride. We need to have each arm doing independent work. And the only way to do that is with bicep dumbbell movements. We're taking the fixed plane out of it, and we're allowing each arm to work independently. So that's first things first. We're not in a fixed plane. The dumbbells also allow for more freedom and independence of movement. So I prefer dumbbells. This is a whole nother story. I talk about this in my book, Growing Your Arm, Gaining an Inch to Your Arms. You can click that link below. But basically, when I switched from barbell to dumbbell curls, I made significant progress. And the reason why is because, again, if you look at it, if I'm grabbing a barbell, right? When I grab a barbell, I'm kind of like locked in. I'm kind of in this position. But when I'm with the dumbbell, I can stand in my natural position and I can lean a little bit to each side as I'm doing it. And when I lean to each side, when I do a dumbbell curl like that, I'm lining up the range of motion and the line of pull and gravity much better when I'm doing it with dumbbells. So if I'm doing a dumbbell curl, I lean a little bit, I curl it, I'm in one line, and I'm down. And then I go and I switch to the other side. When I'm doing it with a barbell, I'm locked in and I'm not in that same position because I can't get over. So you want that little bit of freedom. So automatically, we're going to stop doing anything where both sides of the arms are working together. So any cable movement that you're doing together, anything like that, we're going to drop and we're going to switch to independent arm movement and using dumbbells instead of barbells or a single cable instead of one. All right, that's first thing. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to use stricter movements. Now, the reason why I like stricter movements is because obviously we're going to allow our biceps to do most of the work. When I do a heavy barbell curl, I'm utilizing a lot of the rest of my body, which is why heavy cheat curls never really worked for me and my physique and getting my arms to where they are. So you by doing those stricter movements earlier on in your routine, you're going to get more out of it. So what are the strict movements? Well, preacher curls with dumbbells preferably are the best movement that you can do. You could do one arm, you could do two. I love this one. I got this from Larry Scott. 2 dumbbells on a preacher curl at the same time. That is a great movement, guys. And then incline curls. So if you do those 2 strict movements earlier on in your routine, you're going to get more bang for your buck because it's strict. It's strictly going to work on the biceps. Now, if you are doing anything independently, so let's say you're doing a dumbbell curl, you're going to use the priority principle, which is point number 2, and you're going to train the smaller side first. So for example, and just for the sake of this video, if my right arm is smaller than my left, every time I do something independent, I'm going to start with the right side first. So let's say I'm doing 12 reps, 1, 1. I start with this arm. This arm leads the way because that is the weaker arm that I want to get stronger. So we got to start with that side first. We use the priority principle. The next thing we're going to do is we want to try to train them together, both arms at the same time, whenever we do any of these movements. It's better to do that. The only time I recommend not doing that is if you're doing this like a standing dumbbell curl or a one-arm movement. But if you do a one-arm dumbbell movement, always start with the weaker side. But we want to try to prioritize the incline dumbbell curls and the dumbbell preacher curls because that's going to keep it as strict as possible and using both those arms at the same time. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is, again, just making sure that we give it time. Time is the only factor in all these things. It takes time to change your body. Your body can only deposit and make a certain amount of muscle every day. So the only way to do it is just to give it time. No matter how much you push and want to change as fast as possible, you can only deposit a certain amount of muscle every day on your body, regardless of how much protein you need and everything else. So it's going to take a little time. So combine those things. Priority principle, focus on the weaker side first. Get rid of all barbell movements. Start using single arm movements and dumbbell movements. Take that as a priority and use strict bicep movements at the same time in order to grow and help your uneven biceps. And that will fix the issue. If you guys want help and learn the routine that I use to grow my biceps, well then click the link below and you can pick up my arm program, which will take your arms from sticks to cannons. This was Anthony, AB Fitness, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Our overcrowded personal training gym is in need of trainers. We are drowning in new clients that want and need instruction, and we need you. Certification is a plus, but not necessary. We are growing fast, and there are many opportunities for growth inside our company. So send me a message now if you are interested in working with the best.